Josh Hawley, Republican senator from Missouri, as well as an anthropomorphic slime mold, just released a book about masculinity, and it sounds like it's just as bad as you would imagine. I say sounds because there is no way I'm ever going to open this book, especially after reading this review in the Washington Post by Becca Rothfield. If you've read one of these men's rights, conservative backlash to feminism, masculinity, manhood books, you've read all of them. And Rothfield's review is in many ways less about Hawley's book than it is about this particular subgenre. The thesis of this particular review being that they all find themselves in the awkward position of claiming that masculinity is both unassailable and endangered, both natural enough to be obvious and fragile enough to require defense. We must be social yet solitary, victimized yet valorous. Our power is natural and yet tenuous. We must forge our own path and yet find direction from gurus like Hawley. And Hawley says that men are dependent but also independent. That men do not blame the system, but they do blame liberalism. Manhood is real and biological, but it can also be learned. Now, I realize that it's really trendy when we read books written by far-right political figures like Hawley to invoke Umberto Eco and his definition of fascism. I'm going to do it anyway. And the rhetorics of machismo, heroism, contempt for the weak are easy enough to find in these books about how masculinity is in crisis, right? But what I see addressed less often is point number 8 from Eco's list here. The one that's often described as the enemy is both strong and weak at the same time. Because that is precisely the point that's driven home by these contradictions. The thing is, within Eco's system of fascism, this is the position of the enemy, not of us. Unless, of course, we are our own enemy. Which, surprise, feminist scholars of men and masculinity have been saying for decades. Sociologist Michael Kimmel has made a career out of discussing how masculinity's standards and expectations are impossibly high, and then we punish ourselves for failing to meet them. And far from offering real solutions, books like this one or Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules only add fuel to the fire. Just more rigid and unrealistic expectations that you'll be admonished for failing to meet. More restrictions when what we need are options. More judgment when we could all really use some empathy. Because we are our own worst enemies. And with books like these continuing to flood the market, that's not going to change anytime soon.